Chapter 1. The email arrives. There are men who chase storms, and there are men who wait for them. Kevin Miles had long been one of the former, restless, relentless, sharper than the blade of a surgeon. But for the past 3 years, he had lived like the latter, tucked away in a third-floor walk-up in Brooklyn, lost somewhere between quiet brilliance and unfinished tea. I had not seen him like this since we left the bureau. His routines were infallible. 1 French press in the morning, precisely 6:15 a.m., 3 online chess matches before noon, each played blindfolded, and a silent afternoon with legal transcripts spread across the desk like a crime scene untouched. He hadn't taken a case in over 1,000 days, and he hadn't smiled in just as long. But then, on an otherwise unremarkable Monday morning, the silence broke. It came as an email. No sender, no subject line. Just 1 word in the inbox, sitting like a ticking bomb. Punishment, 01. I remember standing behind Kevin as he clicked. My hands were still wet from rinsing mugs. For those who thought they escaped, you will understand justice when silence falls. There was a set of coordinates beneath the message. 39.7392 degrees north, 104.9903 degrees west, Denver, Colorado. Kevin stared at the screen for a long moment, fingers steepled under his chin. Then, slowly, he turned to me. "Get your coat, Jack." We landed in Denver the next morning. The air was dry and thin. It hadn't snowed, but the city felt like it might. The apartment on Tremont Street was already sealed off with yellow tape, police standing idly like furniture waiting to be moved. The victim was a man named Thomas Heller, 54, a public school teacher, divorced, mildly respected, recently retired. But Kevin remembered more than the files told. Heller, he said, as we stood at the threshold of the crime scene, was accused of misconduct with a student. 2018, charges dropped, no conviction. Media moved on. The student didn't. The body lay slumped over the dining table, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. There was no sign of a struggle, no forced entry, just a thin, almost surgical mark around the neck where the killer had drawn a wire tight like a violin string. On the table sat a worn, leather-bound Bible, open neatly to Romans 6:23. For the wages of sin is death. Kevin didn't say anything for a full minute. Then he turned to me and murmured, more to himself than anyone else, "This isn't vengeance, Jack. It's performance." Later that evening, we checked the email headers. There was no trail, scrubbed through multiple servers, anonymized, the works. Someone wanted us to look, but only so far. Before we closed our laptops for the night, Kevin opened a folder titled Closed Cases. He scrolled past dozens until he stopped at one, Heller's. Then he whispered, like someone remembering an old scar. He was the first to get away. Chapter 2. The Teacher from Denver. There is a silence that only comes after death, a sort of quiet that clings to the walls, more felt than heard. The apartment where Thomas Heller had died was filled with it. Kevin moved through the room with the steady poise of a surgeon, not hurried, not hesitant, just measuring. The Denver detective, still fresh with that youthful confidence that often preceded error, gave us room but not trust. They saw Kevin's tailored coat and unreadable face and weren't sure whether he was a threat or a curiosity. We had both been that kind of man once. I wasn't sure Kevin had stopped. The forensic report told us what we already suspected. No signs of forced entry, no defensive wounds, and no foreign DNA. Whoever had done it had either been invited in or knew the lock better than the owner. What disturbed me more, however, was the calmness of it all. There was no chaos, no overkill, just a message, left without pride or panic, as if punishment, in this case, was procedure. As Kevin stood staring at the Bible still open on the table, I found myself reading the verse again. "For the wages of sin is death." I broke the silence. "You think it's symbolic?" Kevin didn't look away from the page. "It's not symbolism," he said. "It's sentencing." We interviewed the building's superintendent, a man named Lyle with a mustache that looked borrowed from another decade. He claimed he hadn't seen anything strange. "Heller kept to himself," he said. "Always paid rent on time. Quiet type. Though, I heard he'd gotten a letter a week before. Looked rattled, I thought. Pale. What kind of letter?" I asked. He shrugged. "Didn't see it. Just watched him read it in the hallway. Crumpled it up. Looked like he'd seen a ghost." Kevin's eyes narrowed. "Do you have the building's mail logs?" Lyle blinked. "You mean, like, who got what?" "Yes. Number sorry. Not since COVID." Kevin exhaled softly. "Convenient. We found Heller's computer, still on, screen asleep, and carefully accessed his inbox. Most of the emails were spam or retirement newsletters, but Kevin searched for keywords manually. There it was. Subject, no subject. Sender, blank. Date, 1 week before the murder. Message body, you taught them how to speak. Now it's your turn to listen. No attachments, no images, no location, just words, and beneath it, a signature. Punishment, 00. Kevin leaned back in the chair, the blue light from the screen casting shadows under his eyes. "This wasn't the first message," he said. I felt a chill that wasn't from the Denver air. Later that evening, we sat across from each other in a diner that smelled like fried onions and burnt coffee. Kevin stirred his tea twice before speaking. "This isn't a spree," he said. "It's a system." I nodded. "So what are we looking for?" He paused. "We're not chasing rage, Jack. We're chasing reason. This killer doesn't act out of impulse. He acts out of conclusion." I looked down at the manila folder on the table. Heller's past accusations, closed reports, faded headlines. "Conclusion," I repeated, almost bitterly. "So we're looking for a moralist." Kevin met my eyes. "Number. We're looking for a dealer." Chapter 3. A pattern of silence. Two things stood out to Kevin more than blood or motive: repetition and absence. We had spent the flight back to New York reviewing the digital prints of Heller's apartment, cross-referencing the phrasing of the messages. Kevin wasn't speaking much. He rarely did when the pattern was beginning to form in his head. By the time we landed, he had a new folder on his desktop. It was titled Punishment, Structure. The apartment was quiet as ever. The kettle hissed once and fell silent. Kevin stood over the whiteboard he hadn't used in years, once reserved for old bureau cases, now reborn with post-its and printouts. I watched him pin the first message, Heller's, to the center, then draw a circle around it. "Verbal punishment," he muttered. "Biblical language, personal targeting." He added the earlier email, the one labeled punishment-00 at the top. "Precedent," he said. "Introduction. The moment the dealer opens the table." I raised an eyebrow. "So you're saying he's setting rules?" Kevin didn't answer. He was already drawing a line from message to method. No forced entry. No evidence left behind. No messages to police. Only to us. "Whoever this is," Kevin said, "they're not chasing attention. They're chasing control. 3 days passed without incident. It was long enough for the police to forget, and short enough for Kevin not to sleep. On the fourth morning, it came. A new email. Subject, punishment, 02 sender, still blank. Timestamp, 3:17 a.m. The message was short. 2 lines, as always. One danced on graves, one buried the music, now the rhythm ends. Kevin stared at the words, then he turned to me, calmly. Atlanta. We arrived at the club just as the coroner was leaving. The body of Erica Torres, a well-known underground DJ and local radio host, had been found in her sound booth, headphones still on, one hand resting on her mixer. The track that had been looping when the staff found her was titled Mercy. She overdosed? I asked. The coroner shook his head. No drugs, no alcohol, bruising around the throat, ligature marks again, wire or cord, likely from behind. Kevin stepped into the booth, ducking under cables. His eyes scanned the wall, then the desk. No email open, no device left behind. But there was a small black and white printout taped to the wall. It was a photograph, dated 2017. The cover of an underground magazine. Erica on the cover, smiling, hands raised in mock surrender. Headline, I broke the rules. And they played my beat anyway. Kevin looked at it in silence. Then he said, second trial, second verdict. That night, back in the apartment, Kevin updated the whiteboard. 2 victims, both accused, neither convicted, both punished in private. He drew 2 lines, one red, one gray, connecting names to quotes, quotes to times. He circled one word in thick black ink, immunity. And then, almost absently, he said, if law fails, pattern begins. And if pattern holds, he didn't finish the sentence. Chapter 4, The Pastor's Secret. The strangest thing about guilt is how quietly it clings. It was Kevin who said that once, during a case involving a former priest and an empty confessional booth. That particular case had nothing to do with this one, at least not on paper. But as we stepped into the chapel in Seattle and the scent of wax and old wood met us like an accusation, I remembered his words clearly. The third victim was a man named Dean Whitmore, 62, a respected pastor, decades in the community, weekly radio sermons, several books to his name, and now, dead, found slumped behind the pulpit in his own church. No forced entry, no witnesses, no signs of struggle, only silence, and the sound of the last sermon still echoing faintly through the church's speaker system. The coroner's report came in an hour later. Cause of death, ligature strangulation, same as the others. No defensive wounds. The hands were folded neatly in his lap, as if in prayer. Kevin stood at the base of the pulpit and stared upward, lips pressed tight. The air felt thick, still. What was he preaching last? I asked. The tech pulled up the transcript on a tablet. Kevin read in silence. Then he said quietly, forgiveness. There was no email this time. We double-checked every inbox, combed through servers. Nothing. No hidden message, no verse, no signature. But there was a flash drive. Someone had left it tucked beneath the lectern. No label. Just a single Word document inside, titled Confession.x. It contained one line. Clean hands do not mean a clean soul. That evening, back in the hotel, Kevin stared out the window as the Seattle rain etched silver lines against the glass. He's shifting, he said. Who? The killer? Yes. Before, he was theatrical. This one's private, measured. I thought of the folded hands, the lack of any real clue. No email, no warning, I said. That's a break in the pattern. Kevin shook his head. No, Jack, that is the pattern. He's refining it, removing noise. He turned toward me. This one mattered to him, personally. Kevin stayed up late, reviewing archived interviews with Pastor Whitmore. On the third clip, something caught his attention. It was a call-in segment. A woman, voice masked, static in the line, accused Whitmore of using church funds to cover a relationship with a member of his congregation. He denied it, calmly, gracefully. The line disconnected. No charges were ever filed. No one followed up. Whitmore was officially clean. But as Kevin leaned back, eyes narrowed, I saw the expression I'd learned to fear, the moment when clarity struck. He knew her, Kevin said. She told the truth, and someone believed her more than the law did. Chapter 5. In the public eye. There is a kind of violence that doesn't use knives. It comes in waves of questions, headlines, demands. It wears makeup and holds a microphone. And it always smells like urgency. After the third body, 3 cities, 3 victims, 1 method, the press could no longer be ignored. Someone leaked the connections. Someone always does. And now, we were no longer hunting in silence. The first headline appeared that morning. A pattern of punishment. Is there a serial killer delivering justice? By noon, there were a dozen more. The justice dealer, one paper declared, splashed in bold red across its front page. The nickname stuck, too easily, too perfectly. He's not a vigilante, Kevin said flatly, reading over my shoulder. He's a manipulator, and now he's got his audience. That afternoon, the FBI called, or rather, they sent someone. Agent Veronica Dale, early 40s, tailored pantsuit, not the kind to smile unless it meant something. We'd worked with her before, back when Kevin still had an ID badge. We've been monitoring the chatter, she said. Forums, encrypted threads. There's a following forming. A following? I asked. She nodded. They call him a hero, a moral correction to a broken system. They've even started sending in nominations, lists of people who deserve to be next. I looked at Kevin. He didn't flinch, but his silence was sharp. He's never had a better stage, Dale said. And now, he knows it. That night, Kevin did something I hadn't seen in years. He accepted an invitation to speak, a press conference. They wanted the private detective who had received the mysterious emails to go on record. He wanted the killer to listen. I remember standing behind the cameras as Kevin stepped up to the podium. His coat was buttoned to the throat, his face unreadable. He looked directly into the flashing lights and said, "I do not believe in justice by blood, nor in justice by fear. And if you are listening, because I know you are, know this. Patterns are predictable, and you're not invisible." It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. The room went quiet. No applause, no shouts, just silence. Then a single ding. Someone handed Kevin a sealed envelope. No return address, no stamp. Inside, a photo, blurry, grainy. A man's silhouette, barely visible. The caption, handwritten in red ink. Your move. Chapter 6. The 4th. You can feel it when something doesn't fit. It's like wearing someone else's coat. Wrong size, wrong shoulders, wrong scent. That's how this one felt, from the very beginning. We were still in New York when the email came. This time, it was different. Subject line, punishment, 03. Timestamp, 2:06 a.m. Message, what is built on deceit must collapse. Silence will not protect him. Coordinates traced to San Diego, California. Tyler Holloway, 38th CEO of a tech giant specializing in biometric AI, a face on magazine covers, dead in his penthouse apartment, no signs of forced entry, strangled, clean execution, same method, same care, same silence. But something didn't sit right with Kevin. Too polished, he said. Too public. We arrived at the scene midday. The air smelled of ocean and entitlement. The apartment was immaculate, glass, chrome, a symphony of curated minimalism. Tyler was found in his private study, laptop still open, music playing softly in the background. A photo frame on his desk showed him shaking hands with a senator. The only clue was a printed transcript. Anonymous accusations posted on an online forum 2 years ago, alleging that Holloway's company had harvested private medical data through a wellness app. No court case, no charges, just speculation. And that's what bothered Kevin. "These aren't crimes," he muttered. "They're rumors." We spoke to the company's PR team. They gave us coffee and plastic smiles. "He was a visionary," one said. "A target," said another. "Unfairly judged by the court of public opinion," the third offered. Kevin stayed quiet. Then he asked a single question. "Who benefits from his death?" Silence. Then eye contact, quick, subtle, between the three reps. That night, back at the hotel, Kevin stood at the window again. He wasn't watching the skyline. He was listening to it. "I think we've been played," he said. "By the killer?" He turned. "Number. By someone else. This one doesn't belong." I frowned. "You think Holloway wasn't part of the pattern?" "I think someone wanted him to look like he was." And for the first time since the beginning, I realized Kevin wasn't chasing a killer. He was chasing two. Chapter 7. The Cipher and the Sin. The deeper the lie, the simpler the truth at its center. Kevin had always said that, and tonight he was about to prove it. We'd returned to New York the night before, jet-lagged and restless. The Holloway case lingered in the room like smoke. No charges, no justice, and yet someone wanted it to look like justice had been done. But Kevin wasn't ready to move on. Not yet. The key was in the emails. He had printed all 4 out, punishment 00 through 03, and pinned them side by side on the whiteboard. Same structure, same rhythm, same peculiar phrasing. "I missed something," he muttered. It was 1:42 a.m. I sat half asleep on the couch while Kevin stared at the pages like they were scripture. And then he said it. Visionaire. Visionaire cipher. A method of encrypting text using a repeating keyword to shift letters across the alphabet. Old school, elegant, and easy to miss if you're not looking for it. Kevin ran the messages through a decryption tool using one word: punishment. He decoded the first line of each email, just the first, and what emerged was chilling. Message 00. Let the trial begin. Message 01. He was always first. Message 2. She knew what she buried. Message 3. One of these is not real. Kevin stepped back. The last message wasn't about punishment. It was about a mask. "This isn't just a list of sinners," Kevin said. "It's a stage." He crossed Holloway's name off the whiteboard with the red slash. He wasn't chosen by the dealer. He was planted by someone else. I felt the breath catch in my throat. Then, who's the real target? Kevin turned slowly. "We won't find them through sin, Jack. We'll find them through motive." Chapter 8. Faces from the Past. There are names you forget, and names that return like a knife under the rib. Christopher Cust was one of the latter. It was Allison who brought him up. We hadn't seen her since our bureau days, sharp-eyed, twice as fast as any courtroom prosecutor. Kevin trusted her, which meant I did too. She met us in a small cafe on the Upper West Side, her coat still wet from the April rain. "I've been following the cases," she said without preamble. "You're not chasing a pattern, Kevin. You're chasing a disguise." Kevin didn't blink. "Show me." She handed over a file, slim but dense. Inside, transcripts, email headers, redacted interview notes. At the center, customer. He had been a junior compliance officer at Holloway's company 2 years ago. According to Allison, he filed an internal complaint about data misuse. 3 days later, he resigned. 4 days after that, he disappeared. "No forwarding address," she said. "No phone, no paper trail. Like he dropped off the grid." Kevin flipped through the pages. "What's this interview?" "Recorded. One time. He talked to me off record before vanishing. Said he had proof of a shadow deal, stock manipulation using harvested medical data." Kevin looked up. "And you believed him?" "I do now." Later that evening, back at the apartment, Kevin sat in his chair, the file open on his lap. The words "shadow deal" circled in red. "Cust is the key," he said. "Not just to Holloway's death, but to the why behind it." I nodded. "You think he's dead?" Kevin didn't answer immediately. Then, "I think if he was dead, the dealer would have said so." At midnight, a message arrived. Not an email, a text, untraceable number, 6 words. "You're looking in the right grave." Kevin stared at it, then smiled faintly. "He's watching," he said, then quieter. "Or someone is." Chapter 9. The Brother. Some people are too perfect. They say the right things, shake the right hands, grieve at the right depth in public, and move on just soon enough. Nathan Holloway was exactly that kind of man. He gave his first TV interview 4 days after his brother's death, wore a black tie, looked appropriately weary. "Tyler was a flawed visionary," he said, "but a brother I loved. His loss is a wound we will carry together." It was perfect. Too perfect. Kevin and I arrived at the Holloway Foundation headquarters in Boston on a Wednesday morning. The lobby was sleek. Glass, silence, success. Nathan met us in the boardroom. He smiled. Firm handshake, charismatic, measured. The kind of man who seemed born in front of cameras. He answered every question calmly. No, he hadn't seen Tyler in person for weeks. Yes, they had discussed internal ethics complaints before. No, he had no idea who Christopher Cust was. Kevin let him speak. He was never interested in answers, only how people built them. After the meeting, Kevin asked for a tour of the building. Nathan obliged. On the top floor, there was a private gallery, portraits of the company's core values: integrity, vision, responsibility, justice. Kevin stopped at the last one. "Ironic," he said quietly. Nathan didn't respond. He just smiled again, slightly thinner this time. That night, back in New York, I found Kevin hunched over Tyler's financial records. "What are you looking for?" I asked. "A crack," he said. "People hide motives better than mistakes." It didn't take long. Buried under months of clean ledgers was one strange transfer, large, fast, and routed through a dummy holding company. The recipient, Holloway Ventures 2.0, a company owned by Nathan, registered 2 days after Tyler's death. Kevin exhaled, slow. "There's your motive." He didn't say much else. He didn't need to. The next morning, Kevin wrote a name on the whiteboard for the first time since the beginning. Nathan Holloway underlined once, then again, then circled. Chapter 10. The Setup. Detectives don't often set traps. It's not that we can't. It's that most of the time we don't have the nerve to wait for them to spring. But Kevin? Kevin waits better than anyone I've ever met. It started with a question. What would happen, he said one morning, if there were another message? I looked up from the folder I was reviewing. Another victim? No, Kevin said. Another threat, fabricated, carefully. He stood, crossed the room, and pointed to the whiteboard. 4 names, 3 real patterns, 1 false flag. I want to give him a 5th, he said, one that only he would recognize as out of tune. The next 48 hours were precision surgery. Kevin drafted an anonymous post on a restricted darknet forum. Same language, same cadence as the previous messages. A new target was introduced. Dina McClure, a former pharmaceutical executive who had settled out of court in a high-profile opioid lawsuit. The post leaked just enough details to catch attention, especially to those who were watching the case closely. Then, Kevin waited. It didn't take long. 3 hours later, a message appeared in his inbox. Subject: punishment. 4. She hid the poison well, but she won't bury it again. But here's the catch. The message came before any media picked up the leak, before anyone outside the forum could have known. Kevin's voice was ice when he said, Nathan just wrote his own evidence. We traced the email header, buried behind layers of proxies, yes, but there was a flaw. One IP pinged momentarily in Beacon Hill, Boston, just long enough for a single breadcrumb. That morning, Kevin walked into the FBI office with a flash drive. No speech, no speculation, just the truth. We're done waiting. Chapter 11. The confession. Some confessions don't need to be spoken. They exist in the way someone breathes when the room goes quiet, in the space between what they say and what they don't. Kevin didn't want lawyers. He didn't want agents. He wanted 5 minutes in a room with Nathan Holloway, and he got it. The Bureau agreed to a controlled meeting. No press, no cameras, no badge flashing, just Kevin, Nathan, and a single recording device on the table between them. I waited outside, watching through the glass. Kevin walked in like a man taking a final step in a long journey. Nathan sat all ready, composed, back straight, hands folded like a chess player waiting for the first move. There was no greeting. Kevin simply said, "It was never about justice. You just wanted your brother out of the way." Nathan's eyebrow lifted, barely. "Prove it," he said. Kevin leaned in. "You did. Last night." For exactly 3 minutes and 26 seconds, no one said a word. Kevin didn't push. Nathan didn't squirm. Then, finally, he exhaled. Just once. Software. Slow. Like a man letting go of the lie he'd carried too long. "I never meant for it to go this far," he said. Kevin didn't move. "I thought if I made him look like just another name on the list, it would pass unnoticed. And it did. For a while." "And the others?" Kevin asked. "They were useful." Useful. The word echoed in my head like a gunshot in a church. When Kevin stepped out of the room, I stood. "You got it?" I asked. He nodded. Not in words, but yes. Then he handed the recorder to the agent on standby, and he said, "It's over." But in his voice, I heard something else. He wasn't sure. Chapter 12, Trial of the Mind. The courtroom was quieter than I expected. No gasps, no gavel drama, no impassioned outbursts, just paper, procedures, and Nathan Holloway sitting like a man already absolved. He wore gray, not prison gray, designer gray, a tone that said, "I planned this look." The jury watched him like one might watch a polished statue. Beautiful, cold, untouchable. Kevin was called to the stand on the third day. I'd never seen him hesitate to speak until that moment. He was asked to describe the confession. He did. He was asked if it was coerced. It wasn't, Kevin said. And then the defense asked the only question that mattered. "Do you believe Mr. Holloway is mentally sound?" Kevin paused. Too long. Outside the courtroom, reporters gathered like sharks around fresh blood. The trial had split public opinion. Some saw Nathan as a calculating murderer, others as a product of corporate trauma and sibling betrayal. His lawyers built a subtle but powerful defense. Nathan didn't kill out of malice. He was pushed, broken, acting in dissociation. That night, Kevin sat in silence for hours. Finally, he said, "If he walks, it won't be because he fooled the system. It'll be because the system prefers a clean story." I didn't know what to say. I'd never seen him doubt the outcome before, not even when the dealer was invisible. The next day, closing arguments ended. The jury went into deliberation. Kevin didn't stay. He left the courtroom, coat over his arm, and walked outside into a sky that promised rain. When I caught up to him, he said, "We didn't lose. But I'm not sure we won either." And then, like the last sentence in a chapter we weren't supposed to write, he added, "Justice doesn't like gray." Chapter 13, Jack's final note. Some stories don't end. They just find a place quiet enough to rest. It's been 6 weeks since the trial. Nathan Holloway was found guilty, but not of murder. Accessory to obstruction, fraud, tampering with federal evidence, no life sentence, no justice by definition, just enough to satisfy headlines, not enough to satisfy Kevin. He stopped keeping the board. The whiteboard that once held names, photos, threads, it's gone, erased, wiped clean like none of it ever happened. When I asked him why, he said, "Because justice doesn't live on walls, Jack. It lives in people, and sometimes it dies there too." We still meet for coffee. He still reads the paper backwards, still stares out the window like he's waiting for a storm that won't come. But something in him is quieter now. Not broken, just quieter. As for me, I've started writing again. Not reports, not case files. Just this, a record. Of the one case that changed the rules we thought we understood. I don't know if we'll ever hear from the justice dealer again, or if he was ever just one person. Maybe he was an idea, a virus, a pattern that found a willing host. But I do know this. There's always another name, another silence, another grave. And if justice is listening, we're still watching.